is a beautiful, balmy, early summer's night right here in London. But of course, wherever you are in London, you're not very far away, well, too far away, from some sort of close royal association. Where I'm standing now is called the Albert Embankment. And for many visitors who've been to London before, you'll know, of course, about Chelsea Embankment and Victoria Embankment. These were naturally all named by association, as in Prince Albert and Queen Victoria. But when you look, of course, at our beautiful sort of areas of seating, they're all really put together by those wonderful eras, the Georgian, the Victorian, and the Edwardian era. And it's amazing to think, isn't it, that, when I've said to you before, you film around places and you can tell that little has changed when you see, for instance, a movie from 50, 70 years ago, and you look out in the Houses of Parliament and you think, wow, it just looks exactly the same. Nothing's changed, including the lampposts, as we mentioned recently with the George Lazenby video. But there are one or two touches that you may have missed while, say, relaxing and sitting and gazing across the beautiful River Thames. As ever, let me explain. But here on Albert Embankment, if you just take a little stroll a little bit further down and decide to park yourself down on one of those wonderful benches, the ones you're looking at now, that literally look out onto the Houses of Parliament, that wonderful, splendid building that has been featured so many times, as I say, in so many movies, then you really are sitting on something of a bit of royal history. You see, there's a bit of an attachment to these particular benches. They're now Grade 2 listed and have been since the early 1980s. But it was a designer who came up with these particular benches under the instruction of Queen Victoria herself. The actual benches were made by a very famous company out in Regent Street, even then considered to be the absolute, well, #1 area for class. Let me explain. You see, in a very typically Victorian way, the new embankments needed to have some suitable street furniture to give London, well, the very heart of the British Empire, a rather splendid and spiffing look. So they looked towards the designer, George John Villiers. Now, he was hired as the superintending architect. And what they liked is, well, what they saw, because not only was he responsible for many projects along the embankments, including these brilliant London Dolphin lampposts, which have been seen in so many scenes around the world, but also the benches. As you can imagine, he was rather struggling because he didn't really want to displease the monarch, Queen Victoria. However, on the stretch of the Albert Embankment between Lambeth and Westminster Bridges, are 15 benches featuring cast iron swan panel and arms. Now, as I say, they've been protected from the early 1980s. But why do they have swan arms? Well, apparently one possible link to the swans could be a tribute to the old Swan Yard, a small yard full of housing just off Fore Street, the road which ran along the Thames, Swan Yard and Fore Street. This was demolished to make way for the embankment in the 1870s. But the reasoning behind and the design of the swan benches today, they stand elevated on a concrete plinth so that people can sit and admire the fine view of Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, located also to St Thomas's Hospital. Ideal if you're visiting someone in need. So do take a moment to study and enjoy these wonderful benches, all 15 of them, next time you're trotting along either the Victoria, Chelsea or Albert Embankments. And let's not forget, as I've said many times here before on the show, it's hard to imagine the huge impact really that Queen Victoria and of course her Prince Albert had on so many facets of London life. And quite literally, you're either walking or sitting on history. Neil Sean, Albert Embankment, London.